to finding and engaging audiences in an era of dispersion and distraction. We'll get into it in just a minute, but just a little preamble in terms of, we know TV audiences are increasing and they're dispersed across platforms, and when viewers are watching, they're watching TV on the first screen, but they're increasingly engaged in multitasking and can be distracted away from the advertising messages. So our challenge is to these dispersed audiences and to the attentiveness of the audiences that are there. Many people say, oh, now we have big data, right? There's some panels earlier today on, oh, we have big data. Big data will solve everything. And that's true to an extent, but it only complicates matters unless you control big data. So 3 solutions to this challenge that come to mind for me are, to this audience problem is you can use cross-platform to reassemble your reach. If everyone's going all over the place, how do you gather it back up and to reassemble the reach? For the people that you have, if they are confused and they are just not paying attention, how do you re-engage this distracted second screen audience? And then finally, if these pockets of people are getting smaller, how do you target to those correct people? If they're going to be smaller audiences, how do you set your ad campaign to be able to target to that specific audience at the right time? So folks on the stage here with me are going to talk us through how their companies are hitting these challenges head on, and most importantly is how to do it and in an efficient manner is really what it comes down to, because I hear from a lot of the programmers that my company deals with that, great, we can do this, but I've got to do this, I 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 got to do this. And if all of us come up with separate solutions and there's not some sort of standard on reporting or something around it, then once again, just like big data, we're only confusing matters. So if we just go down the line, I'll just have everyone introduce who they are, their company, their title, and then we'll get into the conversation. Ayub?
Sure. Akhil Parekh, Director of Business Development at Roby Corporation.
Hello, Rachel Payne, co-founder and CEO of Fem Inc.
Nikos Theotropoulos, co-founder and CEO of Lingospot.
Hi, I'm Travis Hawker-Smith. I'm the VP of Client Strategy at Yumi.
Juan Roland, working for TV Azteca, New Media.
I'm Justin. Thank you. I'm Justin Evans, Chief Strategy Officer of Collective.
Right. And I'm Andy Cohen, host of Watch With Live. So I feel like on this couch.
We're very underdressed, if that's the case.
Yes, exactly. In episode 6, you fought with Ramona. A little Bravo reference to lighten up your day. Akhil, I'll start with you in that I kind of threw out about big data. And I know that Rovi is doing some interesting things with data. I think it's your AMS product. So what are you doing with that sort of reassemble the audience, I guess?
So just to add to your preamble, measuring TV has actually gotten a lot more complicated today. And we have access to multiple platforms, screens, and services. What we are essentially left with is lots and lots of smaller audiences. And the bigger challenge for buyers and sellers of advertising media is how can they actually get closer to their true target audience? In other words, you're not just targeting a wide demographic of male ages 18 to 49, but you're also looking to find out if they are actually interested in buying a truck, or if they're a dog food purchaser, or cooking show enthusiast for that matter. With the availability of actually these multiple data sets, the big data, whether it's viewership data from set-top boxes or smart TVs, or it's panel data from Rentrack or Nielsen or demographic data, if you can actually combine or integrate these data sets in a more consumable and an actionable form, I think you can actually help advertisers uncover these true target audiences. And Rovi's audience management platform is actually designed to just do that. So it is a sell-side predictive analytics platform that is focused on actually helping TV inventory owners to take advantage of all the different data sets that they sit on or they have access to optimize their on-air show promotions or also their advertising inventory, whether it's locally or nationally. So we have two different applications of our product. One is what we call Promo Optimizer, which is for cable and broadcast networks that's focused on helping them optimize their what show runs when and what promo to run when on their inventory using past viewing behavior. And Ad Optimizer, as the name suggests, it's for the cable and broadcast networks as well as MVPDs to optimize and drive increment dollars to the advertising media, both locally and nationally. So look, at the end of the day, we're selling audiences. And our belief is that if you actually understand the underlying audiences that your 30s and 60-second spots deliver, you can do a much better job at optimizing what ads or what promotions run when on your inventory.
Now, Justin, we were just a few minutes ago on a separate panel. I found out what you guys do. It sounds like it's a bit along those lines in terms of the data, except I think you apply a little bit more on the agency side than on the programmer and MSO side.
Right, so Collective serves brands and brand advertisers. And we also start with that fragmentation challenge, where before the advent of the smartphone and tablet in 2010, consumers were using fewer devices and spending less time on multiple screens. Now the number of consumers consuming media on multiple screens is 3/4 of the United States. So I think very similar to the Rovi approach, we view creating coherence in reach as two separate challenges. First, you define and reach an audience consistently across devices. If you want someone who owns a Chevrolet to target because you work at Ford, we will reach Chevrolet owners on mobile devices, on desktop devices, on a connected TV, and on data-oriented television. The second challenge is choreographing an experience for that individual user. So for moms who are busy and have kids, they connect with their smartphones in the morning. It's the morning commute. They're using it for social media. They're using it for messaging. That's where we're going to get the Ford ad on the device between 6 and 9 a.m. Now mom's at work between 9 and 6. She's at her desktop. She's going to take a video break. We're going to get the Ford ad to her there. When she's at home watching linear television, she's having a second screen experience with the tablet. We'll reach her there. And using data to create that consistent and coherent experience for her across all those devices. So it's about consistent definition and reach and about choreography of the ad experience.
Fascinating. Where do those, who makes those decisions on what platform at what time, right? That you said, I mean, is that coming from the agency? Is that coming from the client? Is that coming from the?
We use our own data to observe how different types of consumers leverage different devices at different times of day. But we also see overall patterns. We actually published a paper on it, that the kind of the relationship with each device defines how you use that device at different times of day. So for instance, people trust the connection they have with a laptop, so it becomes the life management device. That's where you're going to pay your bills, and you're going to engage in that kind of content. So we'll advise a financial services player to create a rich media unit with a lot of content that you can delve into based on that information, and so on and so forth.
That's great. That's great. Travis, over to you. I know we were talking before the panel and said, you know, everyone says it's a dirty word. You're an ad network. Oh, God forbid. But you guys have refined that quite well in a broadband video space, right?
Yeah, we have, and basically, the vast majority of the advertisers that we work with, well, we're trying hard to solve a lot of the same problems as Collective. In fact, we probably work with a few of the same advertisers. But one thing that we've always done is we've been aggregating this fragmentation across screens as people have been spending more and more time on these screens is really looking at all of these screens combined as an extension of the TV plan, because the vast majority of advertisers we work with are spending the vast majority of their media budget on TV. And what they're looking at online video across all these screens to do is add to that TV plan in terms of incremental reach and in terms of reaching audiences across multiple touch points. We've done tons of research with Nielsen and others that shows that, yeah, when you shift some percentage of your TV budget, depending on the demo and the TV plan, when you shift some percentage, you can pick up some incremental reach online. But one thing that we see over and over again, no matter how we measure it, is when you can reach consumers across multiple devices and you take advantage of this fragmentation, all of the brand health metrics that advertisers typically look at increase. And I mean, to put it simply, if you can reach a consumer 3 times and you reach them 3 times on TV, that spot's not going to be as effective as if you reach them once on TV, once on a tablet, and once on their computer. So that's really what we aim to achieve for our big brand advertisers. And we work with about 75 of the Ad Age Top 100 advertisers, so that's really the big challenge that we're focused on is how do we extend a linear TV plan, knowing that linear TV is not going anywhere anytime soon.
So do you see coordination between the TV agency buying on, on the linear side, and then you guys complementing that on the digital side, or do you see those as 2 separate worlds, or are they? Because for years it was the digital guys; they were just separate. Do you see those worlds complementing each other for incremental reach, or is it?
It really varies brand by brand. We're seeing more coordination than ever with some brands, depending on how the agency structure looks, depending on how the structure within the actual advertiser's company looks. But we're seeing this concept of, and everyone has their own term for it, but kind of video neutral planning. They've got a spot that they need to get out there, and yeah, linear TV is probably going to carry a lot of the load, but they'll run it across any environment that makes sense, and they're planning accordingly. So we're seeing more of that than ever. I've been at Yumi for 3.5 years. When I first got to Yumi, we saw very little of that. And now I'd say in about half of the brands that we work with, there's some very coordinated approach now.
Do you see the same thing? Or?
Yes, sometimes you'll be in the room and it'll be the broadcast leader and the digital leader sitting together. Sometimes you're on the digital floor and saying, how can I help you coordinate with TV? And they're like, I think we buy the NFL, and the digital people have no clue what's happening on the floor upstairs.
Right. That's good. Nikos, let's switch over to you in terms of the theme of re-engaging the audience. That I know Lingo Spots, you have scene level metadata, all right, I believe is what it's called. And
Sure.
How are you doing that? How are you using that to engage the audience, and instead of that being a distraction?
First of all, I think it's really dangerous to try to re-engage in the sense of the word that you're trying to force a behavior that is no longer natural. So if we take a very specific example, let's say I'm watching SportsCenter on ESPN. Many years ago, it seems now, I would have to sit in front of the TV, watch that entire show from beginning to end. There was no DVR. There was no really second screen or any other device I could, maybe I could go and grab a beer or do something when something came up that I wasn't interested in. And then DVR came around, and I don't particularly care for baseball, so I could fast forward over the MLB part and go to the other sports that I'm interested in. Now I have another option, which is when that comes up and I'm not really interested in the main programming, I can pull out my phone and check my email, go to Facebook, do something while that's playing in the background. So what we're trying to do is embracing that, knowing that that's not going to go away, and saying how can we capture that time, that downtime, and we're doing it in 2 ways. One is through our C-level metadata, we can actually allow the content owners or distributors, so the MVPD can actually go in and say, now I'm taking this 1-hour show of SportsCenter and I'm breaking it down in chapters automatically and saying, like, here are the chapters, same way you would do on a DVD where you go and you look at the menu and there are the different chapters. And each chapter has a main theme. So I can skip over the MLB and jump to X Games or NFL or whatever the case might be that interests me. So that's one approach. And then the obvious question there is what happens to advertising. And when I do skip, I am going to see an ad first. So I'm going to see the normal ad break that I would see. I would see that before I see my content, but I'm not going to have to go through, watch an hour of a show if I'm only interested in 5 minutes. Okay. So that's one approach. The other thing we're doing is, which is we're calling meta content. We're analyzing everything that's happening on a particular segment on TV. Now, let's say there's a section that talks about the NAB, and I'm watching that. We're pulling in relevant content that can then be displayed on a second screen. So while they switch over to the next segment that I'm not interested in, instead of me checking my email, I'm going to be consuming more content about what I just watched, and that's another opportunity for new advertising real estate on my tablet.
Great. Thank you. Rachel, I hear FEM is doing some interesting things using the data and doing online recommendations. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So,
I do my homework. I can Google just as much.
well, I came from Google, so there you go. Actually, I was there for about 8 years, and it was in that capacity that I observed a few trends that really made me think about where the market's going. So just by a show of hands, how many people think the world of online video is a little cluttered? I think I can see a pretty good number out there. Okay. And maybe a little noisy and not so easy to find everything you want, perhaps. Depends. If you know what you're searching for, maybe. But if you don't know what you're searching for, then it becomes harder. So what we've done is we've developed a video discovery platform that contextualizes video based on what a user is doing in that moment. And it's a lightweight platform that any website or app or device could integrate. And we call it a 10-minute test. It takes about 10 minutes to implement with our partners because everything's automated. And what we try to do is take the pain out of the experience for both partners and the users. So it's a B2B2C platform that basically takes all of your digital assets in video and enhances their value by presenting them to the user at the moment when it matters most and contextualizing what videos the user sees based on what they care about most. And so we think about things a little bit differently. We think about what engagement really means and how do we promote entertainment that really resonates with diverse audiences. We're called FemInc, by the way, because we're an all-female founding team. We're all technical. But we also think about underserved audiences, and we think that in terms of video viewing especially, the female market's massive. We're not exclusive to female markets, of course, but if you think about brand advertisers and the audience they're trying to reach, when you have 80% of all household decisions being made or controlled by women, it matters.
My household, that's 100%. Just
so, you know, about the right range. And what we want to do is move beyond just thinking about viewers as sort of consumers in a transaction and really thinking about how do you build sustainable engagement. And with our platform, wherever a user is, it automatically adjusts based on the environment that the user's in, and then the videos that get recommended are really anticipating what those underserved needs are. So it goes beyond just thinking about you saw this so you might like this, or other viewers watch this so therefore you might like this. We actually go a bit deeper. And one of my co-founders, she's a neuroscientist and behavioral economist, and we developed a lot of proprietary IP around understanding what engages people, what motivates them, what drives them to view, and how can we engage more meaningfully with users.
and
You get the cool award.
yeah,
That's cool.
Right. And what sort of, are there metrics that you can share yet in terms of, okay, this is X% better because, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we see a lot of lift, particularly around partners that have video content that are trying to drive more video views and engagement, which is kind of everyone, right? Mm-hmm. So we have seen a range of between 3 and 20% view rate per impression. Individual impression. And so what we find is context matters, personalization matters, and also the ability to make these inferences around not just what is a person looking for, but what they don't even know they're looking for that we can surprise and delight them with. So we think a lot about engagement as our core metric, but we also really want to promote a graceful, seamless experience that can go with the user. So because we are in multiple environments and we're a distributed platform, we get smarter over time.
So, want to save the best for last. Being the content guy, and of course you get to wear jeans and, you know, cool hoodie and all that stuff. A lot of cool technologies here, but we were talking about how your model is more around, you guys have concentrated on, I'm just going to push it out there. So how do you look at all these tools in terms of pushing your content out?
Yeah, well, Azteca is the second biggest content creator in Mexico, one of the biggest content creators in Latin America, and we decided to focus on that content. So as we saw the segmentation, the breaking up of the audiences, for some time we try to figure out a way of fixing this situation. How do I bring them back? I had them for the longest time. Now they're all over the place. How do I find a way to bring them back to me? Because as long as they're next to me, I know how to bring, how to push the message of my brands and how to push everything I've been doing for the longest time. But so we tried that for a couple years, and that didn't work well. So our next decision, which was a complicated decision, was to push out the content. So we create the content, and we make sure the users, wherever they are, whatever platform they are, they find our content. And how do we integrate our brands? That was the big challenge. So everybody talks about how technology and how the big change has been in distribution. I can attest to the big change or big evolution in production too. Costs of production have gone down greatly, So before, we structured our business to produce 8 hours per channel of original content a day. Now we're structured to produce thousands and thousands of hours of production a week, not a day, but we'll get there eventually. So we see that the solution to this breakup of audiences is not, trying to fix that and bring them back. Is actually, as a content creator, create the content, make sure the brand message is integrated into the content, and we push it out. So then we hand over the problem to you guys to try to help us convince our advertisers that we're engaging, that we're reaching, that we're pushing the message the right way. So that's what we're doing.
Smart. So hopefully got a sense of where everyone's coming from and how they're addressing the dispersion of the audience and all. But all this is one great big science experiment, unless we can measure and report back to the programmer and or the advertiser or back to the content producer, right? Unless we're measuring this and fitting into how this all relates to other media, right? So how does your broadband relate to the linear, and how does it all? So what are your individual companies doing to address this? What do you do today? Where do you see, are you doing a great job? Is there room to grow? How do we measure and how do we sell it through? I guess I'll start here.
Well, at Collective, we believe that there is a massive efficiency issue with siloed media planning and execution. We believe and have data on it from studies we've done that if you execute linear TV in a silo and you execute digital in a silo, you're wasting a tremendous amount of money. And if you coordinate the reach and frequency dynamics across the two, you achieve vastly superior results. For instance, in one case study we published, we saw a brand that was just heaping impressions on TV-only audiences. And they were basically spending $200 for every customer they caused to care about them a little more. And if they even added a single impression of digital on top of that dynamic, they were able to bring those costs down by 4 times. So the total opportunity for brands to use data to create that optimization across the various screens, I think it's just beginning, to answer your question. I think we're at the very, very earliest stages, and we're, in fact, betting the company that this opportunity is something that every brand advertiser is going to want to take advantage of, even in the medium term.
So today, how do they? What's the the measuring stick today, and what do you see that it's going to be tomorrow? In other words, the folks say, oh, I'm just looking at Nielsen net ratings as it applies to a Nielsen rating, or, is it something as basic as that, or
Yeah, I think
where do you see it going?
It all ties to ad effectiveness research of one flavor of another or another. So from a technical perspective, the way ad effectiveness research works is you either through a tag or a database, you're aware that user X has been exposed to X ads on TV and Y ads in digital. Then you have to be able to connect that record to that person's action or a measure of impact, whether they bought something that can be connected through a loyalty card database, or they answered questions in a survey that indicated their attitudes have changed. And now you can begin to see the dynamics of effectiveness or impact tied to multi-screen frequency and multi-screen reach. And through that apparatus, you can begin to measure the impact of multi-screen ads at scale. Right now, the assets to do that are kind of limited. They're, ComScore and Nielsen have multi-screen panels that are with some pretty serious constraints on the scale. But we think over the next few years, with these efficiencies as the prize, the industry is going to push through some of those barriers, and we intend to be at the front of that fight.
Well, how do you, as a producer, how do you determine? You say, okay, I'm just going to push it out there, but I would think you need some data back that sort of says, oh, well, that was more effective than that, or that was more effective than that, or something along those lines. I mean, do you get that sophisticated of sorts, or?
Well, we're still working on that part. Reach is something that we're used to on TV, Nielsen. But we're looking for a deeper. I mean, we're integrating our message deep into the content. So it's not a matter of how many people view the content or what reach it gets, but does it change behavior? That's what we're looking for. I mean, that's the big metric that we need, to really push for this, just letting it go and just letting it flow freely. So, yeah, I mean, reach is important right now. That's the only metric we have, pretty much. As you said, we can do some, other kinds of extrapolation of the data. But that helps us create better content, integrate better. But really, I mean, the holy grail is to be able to prove to our advertisers that the message was communicated. So,
how about over, Yumi?
Yeah, the measurement absolutely has to evolve to allow the industry to continue to grow at the rate that it's growing. In the early days of cable TV, there weren't Nielsen ratings. And once the Nielsen ratings extended into cable TV, it obviously boomed. So we need a similar dynamic here, and I think we're getting it to a large degree, at least from an early stage perspective. So there's a bunch of different types of measurement that needs to occur and is in various ways today. But one, we have to prove that you're delivering ads on legitimate viewable impressions, and that's been all the rage in the trades to date, at least this year. And then once you can prove that it's a legitimate viewable impression, then you have to prove that you are delivering to the intended audience that the advertiser wanted to buy. And then after that, you have to prove the holy grail that the ad was effective. So there's different types of measurement on each one of those criteria that are all evolving at different rates. Interestingly enough, that third one, the holy grail one, is probably the most evolved of the bunch to date. But if I had to bet on who is going to become the de facto standard in our space, it would probably be Nielsen. Because of that dynamic of advertisers looking at online video across these devices as an extension of TV, and the currency in TV is Nielsen. So they have a lot going into this space, as do many others, and it will continue to evolve.
Because do you worry so much about this aspect of it? You just say, look how cool my technology is. I can skip chapters and still maintain the ad load.
I think it's looking at what has happened in the online space and what's happening now in TV and what probably will continue to happen in TV for at least the next 3 to 5 years, there's a huge discrepancy in terms of what you can get. So think of, if you would go to Google and you would see a random ad every time you did a search. Maybe it was, it would be, the advertiser would pay based on the number of impressions, but it would be a random impression ad. That's pretty similar. You get some demographic targeting, but it's pretty similar with what's happening on TV. Now I could sit here and tell you, well, with our technology, you can analyze a video, you can target, and you can get higher CPMs for your TV viewing. So example, I said before, Red Bull can only target their ad right before the X Games, and not before the MLB, that kind of stuff. But what it comes down to is the people who control the money, the budgets, and the media buyers have been doing something for decades that works, or they think it works. And it's a very difficult ship to turn. And I was at a different conference yesterday, and the president of Univision basically said that 70% of their audience is from mobile. Who can guess what percentage of their revenue is from mobile? 3. Were you there?
No, I just thought.
Okay. So and that's a disincentive to change something right now. So our technology is cool. You can do a lot of cool stuff. I don't think it's going to affect the TV advertising model anytime soon. That's a reality.
So I'm really encouraged by the opportunity for brands to move into digital in a way that enhances their brand value and provides brand safety. I think that's a real challenge. You had mentioned the 3 big challenges, but I would add brand safety to that mix and being able to verify how your brand was represented to whom and where and what environment. I think those are important metrics as well. But I think what's really exciting is that there's been so many creative efforts from the fans and from the evangelists of the brands, that there's now an opportunity to bring that in to the brand story. And so, for example, one of the things that we do is create branded video experiences that can pull in UGC and branded entertainment and have the wraparound brand experience all within a contextualized environment that's dynamic, so that, if a user is going from one site to another, it changes, the experience changes based on what they're doing, but the brand has an opportunity to tell their story in a way that is similar to the engagement level of TV. Because it's video, it's through video that brands are engaging audiences, but being able to do that with branded content versus just ads is a huge opportunity that's, in my view, virtually untapped. Where does the brand, what's the home for a brand if you're talking about branded entertainment in the digital world? And if it's outside of maybe it's your YouTube channel. Okay, then what? So we're creating that home.
So you guys, you said, right, we have branded entertainment, basically brands inside your content.
Yes. That we would
I assume they come to you for brand safety? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Especially on YouTube. When you buy on YouTube, you pretty much, you fall wherever, pretty much you could fall anywhere. So we make sure that, first of all, a lot of our content lives on YouTube, and that's safe content. And then when we create original content for the brands, we make sure that those values are kept and are safe. So that's very important for us and for our advertisers. That's why they look for us.
So Akil, where do you guys, obviously Rovi's firing on a few different levels, but as far as the work you work on, where do you see, how does measurement play into it?
I actually want to touch upon a few things you guys mentioned. One was basically the currency or the data that's there to actually give you the measurement across different platforms, starting with TV, since that's where we've started our focus on. We've taken a slightly different approach. We've gone data agnostic. So we don't really care whether you're using Nielsen as your currency or Rentrack as your currency or something else. We will take any data that you have access to and basically try to make sense out of it. And to your point, whether reach is the measurement that we have access to today, but to understand the impact of the content that you created, that's what I think technology has and data has helped to kind of figure out. Really. To give you an example, I think TV networks are one of their biggest advertisers because they promote their own shows. They spend a lot of money in promoting their own shows, right? So to find them the audience that is engaged in watching the content that you've created and reporting on it to say, here's the reach and frequency, and then the impact the predictive component of what they're going to do next. That's where we've gone and said, look, we will analyze the likelihood of the viewers within the measurement sample to predict whether they will tune into a particular show. And by modeling the behavior of all these individual homes, you then create basically an opportunity, basically you create a target audience and that will match with a basket or a unit of inventory. And then you create a basket of units that are focused on a specific audience. And that's where you find the impact, that this is your targeted audience that is impacted by the show or the content that you've created. So we've gone two different routes. We've basically taken a data agnostic approach to the measurement issue. As long as the data is there, we can report on it and the metrics that are available. But at the same time, we're self-learning. So we're predicting where these audiences are going after being exposed to a particular show or after being exposed to a particular ad.
I mean, what I do find fascinating is if you were here maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and if we were talking about how data is going to influence everything, and now when I throw out a question about what matters in terms of the measurement, everyone has a real specific definition of where TV of tomorrow can be. Right? I think everyone bowed to, yes, reach is the way to look at it today, but didn't plan this. But did find some real interesting answers of how do you not just reassemble the audience in a dumb way. And I think everyone had some real fascinating insights on how to do it. So I'll leave it there for a second. I'll throw out at this point any questions from the audience at this point of anything anybody has on their mind. I see someone running, so. Is that a phantom hand or no? Was it a real hand or phantom hand? Okay, we'll think. I'll throw it out to you in a second if anyone's coming up with a question. So you said, oh, we're betting the farm on this. Yeah. So where do you see it? Where do you see it in 3 years? I mean, I was on a panel recently with a lot of agency folks, and it was all about programmatic buying and how much how much we hear that buzz today and all that sort of stuff, and it's a new way and it's based on all that. And even the top agency people who were doing it, these people were the folks in the thick of it for their agencies, and the moderator said, well, how much of this is real? In other words, what % of your business is going there? And today they say, oh, back to the mobile sort of, 3%, 4%. It wasn't exactly this big astounding number. Where that it is TV of tomorrow, where you bet the farm on it. How long do you think this transition takes, or what sort of things have to happen in order for you guys to pay off on this bet of the farm?
Right. Well, I think the where I see it going is using databases to create platforms that can truly measure reach on a census level across different device platforms. So we have a total strata of mobile reach, a total strata of desktop reach, a total strata of TV reach, and we will have a universal view of reach across devices by audience. To me, that seems almost an inevitability based on how the cost of technology and data are trending, and based on the economic value of optimizing that across those layers. How long will that take? 5 years.
Fair enough. Juan, do you guys worry about that sort of thing? Or you just say, hey, I'm making content, I'm going to keep making good content, I'm pushing it out there, and so be it?
Well, there isn't much we can do besides creating good content. That's what we do. We try to partner up with the right people to make sure that happens. So we have the data, we have the tools, we have the technology to do the feedback on the content we create and make sure that we provide this information to our advertisers that it's working, it's happening, and we're on the right path. So,
Travis?
So in the next 3 years or so, I can see just like I was talking about before, the measurement evolving rapidly. And I think as measurement evolves rapidly, so that there's more of a kind of single version of the truth in terms of what you're getting when you buy these various screens, you're going to see much more convergence, going back to a very early comment on video neutral planning. And you're going to stop seeing brands planning so much on each of these platforms in a silo, but thinking much more about how they work together at the very early stages of planning. We're at the cusp of that, and I think 3 years it could easily become reality that you don't have a TV team and a digital team. You have a team.
I agree.
Nikos, where do you see this going for you?
I actually think the future is just around the corner, and probably will be for another 5 years. I think the catalyst will be, right now, we talked about a single screen experience on a tablet or on a smartphone, and then you have your TV. And I think that TVs are getting smarter, but what's missing and what needs to happen is pure IP delivery of video. Once you have that, then all devices are just different size screens. Nothing else
Even
matters.
playing field.
Yeah. And that's where you can have targeted content, targeted ads. You get essentially what you now have on the internet and much more. And you can do it on the content side. So that obviously requires a lot of infrastructure, possibly fiber, and a lot of investment needs to go in. The pipes have to get fatter. And then there's a lot of business side to that, a lot of issues that need to be resolved. So maybe 5 years is aggressive.
Because it relies on infrastructure.
Well, I don't even know if it's the infrastructure, really. It's more of a traditional way of doing things and incumbent players and new threats. I saw a presentation by Google Fiber yesterday, and those who are very few who are lucky to be in those cities, they get 1 gigabyte of video for $70 a month. And
For how much a month?
70, and 1 gigabyte is a lot. And if you can get that on a broad range across the country, not necessarily from Google Fiber, but from other providers and VPDs, et cetera, then that enables a whole set of different services. And I think that's where the advertising is really going to pick up and completely transform.
So, Rachel, how long you've been at this, and how do you see it playing out over the next few years?
Well, when you say at this, it could be both a little over a year with the current startup, or it could be my whole life in technology. I don't know.
The company itself, put it that way.
A little over a year.
Okay.
So one of the things I wanted to weigh in on here, first of all, I really like the vision that everyone was painting, and I look forward to that day of abundant, valuable data. One of the things I would also like to encourage is thinking beyond silos. We mentioned silos a few times in terms of ad buying, but I also think about it in terms of the user experience and also how users are treated. So one day, soon I hope, it won't be customary to be either fashion or beauty or cooking, but instead a graceful, seamless experience that takes into effect that we are all multidimensional human beings and we have a varying set of needs at any moment in time that are dynamic and based on what our need is in that moment. And just like that, I'd like to see platforms also be agnostic so that it's a seamless, graceful experience, whether it's a wearable or my mobile. And thinking about how we can create a user experience that is graceful and fluid and seamless and really speaks to the underlying need that we're serving for the viewer.
Right. Keel, how do you see your business playing out over the next few years?
Well, as far as the strata across TV, mobile, and other screens, we really don't care. We'll become a processor of that data because we're data agnostic. 5 years, I think that is aggressive, but
All right, fine, 6 1/4.
All right, I agree. To us, I think it definitely makes things a lot easier to measure and manage and serve content across multiple platforms. So definitely, but I think there is also the predictive component that needs to get better, and I think with that data set, it will help.
So we've covered a lot in terms of agencies, and in terms of what needs to happen there. What's all of your relationship with the major programmers? Akil, I'll probably throw back to you in that it seems like you're catering there in terms of their tune-ins and all of that.
Right.
Are the major programmers, because it's as much as infrastructure and all that's obviously a major part of this, but the other big ship in all of this are programmers willing to play.
Yeah.
So how do they respond at least to your tune-in tool today, and how do you see that as a predictor for how they might use these tools to sell differently?
I mean, the response has been fantastic. The platform, the UI, makes their job a lot easier. The media planners and schedulers essentially, when they look at it, and it's like, this is exactly what we're looking for in really simple terms. We've been talking to pretty much everybody as far as programmers are concerned. We're working with a number of them. I think ultimately what they're looking for, initially there could be a potential resistance that we had thought of, that this is something that's going to replace their job. But when they actually see the tool and they can actually take a look at, oh, I don't have to do multiple spreadsheets to actually figure out what my target demographic is and do the yield management or dynamic pricing on what CPM should I have for the remnant inventory or my premium inventory for that matter. I think it really helps them excel and do their job better. So the response has been quite fantastic.
So they recognize that efficiency.
Absolutely.
That's nice. Anyone else in terms of programmer relationships? I just throw it out. Rachel?
Well, we speak to anyone who has video assets, which is everyone. And one of the things we've heard from entertainment networks is, we all know that there hasn't been replacement income on the digital video side versus, say, traditional TV. We all know that. The economics have been struggling in many ways. So if your most valuable digital asset is video, and you're not monetizing it enough, what we do is help drive monetization through engagement, but also by radically opening up a lot of new inventory for your videos to be seen. So because of that, it actually does enhance the value of your core digital asset. And we also can do recommendations and discovery, as others here in this room have, but it allows us to create this personalized experience on your platform and anywhere else. So I think it's the distribution side as well as the on-site curation and recommendations that we can do.
We've also been partnering with programmers, Collective has, with their ad sales group. So if the ad sales vision of a TV programmer is that data is valuable and the audience can be recreated in digital with data, then we will often find ourselves working as a partner to their ad sales organization to use this data platform to extend the programmer's ad sales effort across screens, but using data as the glue. If for them it's all about the content, then they have a different set of challenges.
I did find it amazing that before this upfront selling season for the programmers, that some did actually come out in the press publicly and do say, oh, we may look at programmatic buying, or we may look to other partners as a way to sell our inventory, which I did find sort of underlying earth-shattering at the same time, that they'd actually even say that publicly. Right? I'm sure maybe you'd work with them behind the scenes and all of that, but to actually say that publicly during an upfront selling season was kind of amazing. We got a couple more minutes. Any last-minute thoughts from anyone up here in the audience? Yeah, question back there.
In your data collection, do you capture that? I'm guessing that you do where it's available.
Great. Yeah, I mean, as far as the broadband side, the IP side, you guys, is anyone doing overlay units or anything along those lines, or?
To be honest, the source of the data for us from television is from the set-top box, and we focus on the programming and the ad exposure. We flirted once with getting deeper into, say, using people who had reacted to an interactive ad as a kind of retargeting, but it never quite caught fire. I think it was actually simply because the client found the interactivity feature so satisfying that they didn't need to add on to it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering because I think from the first screen to the second screen, if you can track that user, that sounds like the holy grail. If I can get an interactive reaction on the first screen that actually drives that user to the second screen, and now I can track it. I mean, that sounds like the holy grail you were talking about, right?
Yeah, we did some research on that with IPG Media Lab last year with, earlier this year rather, with Applebee's, Fiat, and L'Oreal. And we saw some interesting dynamics. First, we found that the second screen ad experience, when it was really paired with the primary ad, was extremely effective. And the longer the delay was, the effectiveness still lifted, but it declined over time. And the second thing we found was that when you, the test we did, we created in the lab was, we wanted to see like how much you could kind of create a narrative with a multi-screen ad experience. So if I see a bunch of ads on television that give me the big emotional experience, okay, maybe after 5 exposures, I'm ready for a little more detail, and I can go down the purchase funnel in a single campaign. The test, unfortunately, was not complete, and what we found was that did not work when the level of exposure is low. In other words, if you have a low number of exposures, you have to hammer the message home. You can't create a narrative. So a follow-on opportunity for us in IPG is to kind of do that same experiment, but with more exposures and see where the narrative is created.
And a little background for what we found at Canoe when we abandoned the ITV business a bunch of years ago. And it wasn't that it didn't work. Actually, the results were quite amazing because of the things that you spoke about. Where it really broke down in terms of the business was, one, to build out the infrastructure and the cost it took to do that in a set-top box environment. That's why I kind of asked the IP question, is it's much easier to do economically in an IP situation. But back to the point I brought up about it being a nice big science experiment unless you can measure it and unless there's a mechanism at the ad agency to buy it. I mean, that's mainly been the issue with interactive TV to date, is there's no mechanism within the agency world to buy it easily. So as a cautionary tale to those out there thinking about ITV, I'd say it's not really a technology problem. I would concentrate more on the business end in terms of allowing the agency to be able to buy it easier. Just a little tale there. Any other last minute comments? Anybody? No? Good. Audience? All right. Well, we'll give you back how much of your time? 2 minutes? Here you go. You got a whole. You never subtract time, right? You're always just saying what you have left. So hopefully we've taken a complex sort of discussion and boiled it down to some for you to take away. So thank you.